Still love that music. I don't know why. All right, what is up, everybody? How y'all doing today? Oh, hit the microphone there. All right, I haven't done an afternoon coffee in a while. Besides, I'm just hanging out right now, taking my mid-afternoon break, having my cup of coffee. It's a rather larger cup of coffee today. Mm, still good. Ooh, that is good. Hanging out, got a lot of stuff to do this week. I have a lot to do every week, right? God, this I was looking at some paperwork yesterday. Those of y'all that are either teachers in general, professors, high school teachers, elementary school teachers, doesn't really matter. If you're in administration, you will especially be able to sympathize with this. So, like right now, I'm dealing with all sorts of just bureaucratic nonsense, both for the college's accreditation process and the review process and blah, 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 blah. I mean, like the list is never ending, and for our approval to admit international students as well. As we have a lot of interest of students overseas, especially in Canada. That's kind of interesting. But we, of course, need special approval to admit international students. So, all right, work on that. So it's just those two things. ICE, those guys are always fun. And our regional accrediting agency, and the paperwork. Oh my goodness! Again, if you guys are administration, you probably could sympathize with this. The just the list of things. You're looking at the checklist and all of the different kinds of evidence they need for this, that, and the other thing. I didn't even know where to start. I really spent most of yesterday just kind of dumbfounded, like looking at the list of everything they wanted to do. And it's like, all right, at some point I need to get started on this, but that'll be for the coming days ahead, along with writing a dissertation, teaching 3 classes, all that good stuff. I don't need to sleep or rest or anything like that. But anyway, so right now I'm just taking my little bit of my coffee break. Now, normally, all right. So I always talk about normally, right? I do have my Collegium coffee, the Heavenly Roast coffee, the Seraphim blend. I love it. It's very, very good. But and I'll put the link to that in the description. Definitely go get you some Collegium coffee. Normally, this is what you see me drink on my afternoon coffee days, but today is a special day. Right? Today is a feast day. Today being the feast of Saint Matthias, the apostle. Uh, and actually, I was baptized in the Church of Saint Matthias. Mm, um, it is Saint Matthias today, right? Mm, wrong website. That would be really funny, actually, if that's the one. Yeah, it would be really funny. Or is it Matthew today? Is my Latin that bad? Probably is. All right. Well, I have to admit, open error on it's still a feast day. Open error though. God, I didn't realize my Latin had gotten that bad. It happens, right? Saint Matthew, apostle and evangelist. Right? You think I'd have been paying more attention to the office this morning when it said et evangeliste? Yeah, but it was early and I was like, oh well. Saint Matthew, apostle and evangelist. Still, anyway, feast day. And so today, because it's a feast day, I am having a dip out of my all hail private blend from Gary at Nerdrotic and his friends over at Geek Grind Coffee. Uh, so normally on like just normal days of the week, I have the Collegium coffee, the Seraphim blend. Usually on feast days and on Saturdays, I will have some of the All Hail private blend. I will put the link for this in the description below. And on Sundays and high solemnities, the folks over at Geek Grind have another coffee blend, the Wizard's Mist, that I've actually come to quite enjoy. It's more than I thought I would. It has a little bit of a green apple kick on the back end. And the first time I tried it, I said, "Oh, that's interesting." But I kept drinking it, and I was like, "Man, I actually really like this." So I saved that one for super special days, Sundays and solemnities. My all hail private blend for feast days, and my collegium coffee, the seraphim blend for my daily coffee. Get a little bit of progressive solemnity going on. I still can't believe I flubbed Matthias and Matthew. My Latin is that bad. Uh, Anyways, I was going to tell a quick story. If it wasn't, I was actually baptized in the Church of St. Matthias, now defunct and no longer around. So, had this ended up being his feast day, would have felt a little bit of a special kinship since I was baptized uh, in the church under his patronage. I was baptized under the name of St. Anthony. Uh, but anyway, it's not Matthias, it's Matthew's feast day. And speaking of St. Matthew's feast day, I was thinking about this the other day, right? So this actually came up in one of my classes with one of my students, and the notion of the church like being founded on the rock of St. Peter. And very often Catholics tend to talk about that a lot, like the St. Peter being the rock or the rock of St. Peter, blah blah blah. And so my sister on her blog, I'll put the link to that down in the description of this video too. It was a while back. This was actually in February. Share screen. That's the button I'm looking for. Goodness, it is. It's a long day. What am I looking for? Not that. Not that. This. Okay. So back in February, that's kind of how behind I am. Although I read it when she published this over on Catholic 365, right? Talking about Matthew 16 and papal infallibility. And while she was talking about a number of other things, I kind of wanted to focus on this paragraph here. This was what came up, right? About the notion, right, when in Matthew 16, when Christ tells to Peter, right, you are rock, right? And on this rock, I will build my church. And so there's something interesting going on, right? And scholars for the longest time have pointed out, right? There's a difference in the masculine and the feminine in there, right? Obviously, he's talking to St. Peter, who's a guy, right? Uh, so you would use the masculine form of the name, right, to as Petros, right? Petrus in Latin. Okay. And but even in Latin, the feminine comes out et super hanc petram, right? And on this rock, edificabo ecclesia meam, right? I will build my church. Okay. And so it's interesting. So my sister's going through this, right? That by this rock, Christ referring to Peter's profession of faith, and that Christ is using a play on words. That Peter himself is not the rock, right? But Christ is the rock. Real quick, if you ever watch this, the word you were looking for there is successors, right? Those who follow after him. But it happens. I do stuff like that all the time. Right? That Christ is using a play on words that Peter is, and this is kind of interesting, right? That Peter, not the rock, at least not himself, nor any of his successors, right? His follower, those who come after him, but Christ himself is the rock, right? The church is built upon the teachings of Jesus. Right? And so, being the good Thomas that I am, right? Said I went and said, all right, let's go check out St. Thomas's commentary on this passage. Right. So here it is. This is Thomas's commentary on Matthew, chapter 16. Obviously, this is lecture 2, right? Verses 13 to 19. And so here it is, starting at section 1381, right? And I say to you that you were Peter. Here he gives again the reward for Peter's confession, so on and so forth. So he gives the name, a power that comes with that name. Concerning the giving of the name, he gives the first and the reason for that name. Upon this rock, I will build my church. And so Thomas goes on, right, speaking like kind of in the person of Christ. I came into the world for this, that I might found a church. Going back to Isaiah, right? I will lay a stone in the foundation of Zion, right? So this is even Thomas is drawing on some Old Testament ecclesiology, some imagery here, right? That just as the people of Israel, right, Zion kind of foreshadowed the church, right? It was a prefigurement of the church in the Old Testament that is fulfilled in the New Testament, right? A tried stone, a cornerstone, that's going to be important, right? founded in the foundation, signified by the stone Jacob put beneath his head. That was interesting. I hadn't put those things before, two and two together before. However, right, this is the important point. This stone is Christ, right? Christ is the cornerstone. Christ is the foundation stone, right? And he goes through St. Paul, a number of Pauline images here, right? Here from 1 Corinthians, right? The rock was Christ. When St. Paul is talking about, again, the Israelites traveling through the desert, they all drank from the same rock, right? They drank the same spiritual drink, right? From the rock that followed them miraculously. And this is St. Paul giving the meaning, the interpretation. He says, and that rock was Christ. And so here is St. Thomas drawing explicitly on that image. Christ is the rock. Going further in St. Paul, right? No other foundation can be built but that which is laid, and the right Christ is the cornerstone. Right? The foundation, the cornerstone that has been laid, but that which is laid, which is Christ Jesus. Right? And so Thomas then going through, right? So for this reason, the stone is Christ, and from that anointing, right, from Christ, we are all called Christians. And hence we are called Christians not only from Christ, but from the rock. For this reason, he specifically imposes a name. You are Peter, right? You are a rock from that rock, which is Christ, being built on Christ. But he gives this, but what is this? Are both Christ and Peter the foundation? They can't both be the foundation of the church, right? And Thomas resolves it obviously just perfectly here, right? First of all, you should say Christ is the foundation of the church, right? The church is built on Christ, and it's through Christ, through himself. But note that he gives to Peter here, because he specifically gives that name of rock to Peter, right? This is something he says that, but Peter is the foundation insofar as he holds the confession of Christ, right? Insofar as he confesses Christ as Lord and as God, right? Insofar as Peter is Christ's vicar. And again, Paul's letter to the Ephesians, being built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ being the cornerstone, right? That on which all else is built. Right? So even in the rest of the scriptures, it's clear that the apostles and Peter especially are something like the founding stone, right? Even the book of Apocalypse, right, of Revelation, right? Say Apocalypse. Okay. The walls of the city, the New Jerusalem, had 12 foundations, right? The names of the 12 apostles, right? But it's Christ who is the foundation through himself, right? Christ is the ultimate foundation of the church. But the apostles are foundations not by themselves, but by Christ's permission and authority. Okay. This is one of the things I love about St. Thomas. Okay. Very often you talk about and the Protestants be like, oh, but Peter can't be there. Only Christ is the rock. And it's like, well, that's actually true. But one of the things I love about Thomas is by looking at everything as a whole. Of course, by looking at this passage, Matthew 16, and Christ says, you are the rock. And on this rock I build my church. But Thomas, drawing from the Old Testament, drawing from St. Paul's ecclesiology and St. Paul's imagery, he's able to give this much fuller, much more beautiful expression to this meaning of what it is for Peter to be the vicar of Christ, to be that on which the church on earth is built, right? The church, see, people forget the church has three sort of levels, if you want to call it, right? There's the church triumphant, the saints in heaven, the church suffering, the holy souls in purgatory, and the church militant here on earth. It's the church militant that's here on earth that is established on Peter and the apostles and their successors. But still, like Thomas points out, only by Christ's permission. The entirety of the church is founded on Christ himself. Right. And I love that you get stuff like that from Thomas. Right. So, that came up in one of my classes a couple days ago, and that's why I was thinking about it. So I said, and then my sister wrote something on this, not recently, I guess it was 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whatever. right? But again, I'll put the link to the description in that of that her article, and I guess Thomas's commentary too. I'll put the link to Thomas's commentary in the description. It's going to be a lot of stuff in the description here. Some coffee, some articles, some Thomas's commentary, all this good stuff. Right. All right. There were some other things I kind of wanted to just share. Look at this. I didn't notice this before. I saw this morning. Now, I don't claim this to be original at all, because, of course, by the time I see anything on the internet, it has already been around the block, probably more than once. But I saw this morning, and I really enjoyed this. Right? Still in complete awe of Christopher Nolan ending The Dark Knight Rises with a slightly higher budget version of that scene from Batman 66. Right. Now, I grew up watching the old Adam West Batman, and so I remember that movie. I remember the TV show. And actually, believe it or not, I just recently watched the Batman 66 again over the summer, I think. It wasn't very long ago. And I said, I, I hadn't thought about that before, where he ends up, and you see the Adam West as Batman, and he's running through the pier. He's got the bomb, and then like he throws it into the harbor. It's like, that is exactly what Nolan does in at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. Oh, that's funny. I wonder if that was intentional or not, but it really is funny. And I gotta say, I know sometimes people hate on The Dark Knight Rises, but Nolan's trilogy really is awesome. Right now, also I grew up on the Adam West Batman, true, but I also grew up with Michael Keaton's Batman. Right, so Tim Burton Batman and Batman Returns. What, 89 and was it 92? 92 or 93 was Batman Returns. And so I really enjoy those. I've never actually sat and ranked the Batman movies for me, because I did like Batman Returns. I loved Nolan's trilogy. The Dark Knight, probably one of the best Batman films of all time. And then, unlike a few other people, was it 2022? Was that earlier this year? The Batman. Robert Pattinson's The Batman from Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers. I loved that one. Right. It was a little. Actually, no. I take this back. It's not the length that I have the problem with. Right. The fact that it was like almost 3 hours long. I don't care. It could have kept. It could have been 4 hours long. Loved it. Right. That's not the problem. It did kind of slightly fall apart in the third act. Right. As it was ending, some of the Riddler's motivations it was like ah. But it was, for me, it was like you tripped. It was small. You tripped. Right. But still, you can't ruin the rest of that movie for me. I love the Batman. Right. I mean, I had that thing pre-ordered. As soon as it came available for pre-order, 4K, buy, right, purchase. I hope they don't mess up the Batman sequel the way I think they're going to mess up the Joker movie. Have y'all seen this? That the Joker sequel is going to be a musical? It's like, well, the first one was really good. I can't say that I'd want to see it again, but it really was a masterclass in cinematography, in score. I mean, the movie's almost perfect as a cinematic piece. Story's pretty good too. It really shows. I mean, the descent of somebody into madness. And then they go and make the sequel a musical. Give me a break. So I hope they don't do that to the Batman 2. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't heard that they're turning that into a musical, but who knows? There's been one or two like small announcements. I think pre-production's already begun and stuff like that. So I am looking forward to it. Right. So again, big Batman fan. All right. One last thing. All right. So I saw this today, and y'all got to check this out. Look at this. Who on earth is trying to cook chicken with NyQuil? I don't understand. Yeah, it's silly. God, on appetite. That's the first thing I would have thought, right? Who on earth is cooking chicken with NyQuil? I know that, we're as Christians and all, we're supposed to be charitable, all that good stuff, but I don't know. I think I have slightly hit a point where like all these TikTok challenges, really, I don't know. I kind of think we need to leave that end of the gene pool to themselves and just let that work itself out. I don't know, right? I mean, if you're gonna if you're gonna cook chicken in NyQuil and all the other stupid stuff that goes around on like, oh, TikTok and film yourself doing this, and but you know what? You probably have what's coming to you, but don't know. Right? Yeah, boiling medicine makes it much more concentrated. Yeah. Even if you don't eat the chicken, inhaling the medication's vapors while cooking could cause high levels of the drugs to enter your body, harming your lungs, right? Yeah, Benadryl challenge. I mean, really? I mean, come on. At a certain point, I don't. At a certain point, some of those you just need to work. That's got to just work itself out. Don't understand. All right. Okay. It's been about 22 minutes or so. I don't want to keep this overly long. This is just my afternoon coffee break. Just hanging out with y'all for a bit. Messing up whose feast day it is, all that good stuff. I'm not going to edit that out, by the way, when I put this up. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it in. I got to get back to actually. So tomorrow, one of the class I teach tomorrow, going through Aristotle's Physics. We finished book 1 last week. We started book 2 this week. What are we looking at? Book 2, I think chapters 3 through 7. Yeah, chapters 3 through 7. We get to cover the 4 causes tomorrow, so that's fun. So we already looked at the 3 principles of nature: matter, form, and privation. We looked at the beginning of book 2, what nature is, the difference between philosophy of nature and mathematical physics, right? Natural science and mathematical science. The notion of nature that the physicist is concerned with both the matter and the form composite, more so the form than the matter, but you can't give an account of natural things without taking into account the matter. So anyway, so that's where I'll be getting back to that this afternoon, a handful of other things, I'm sure. But all right, it was good hanging out with you guys. Don't know when I'll do this again. I'd like to do it once a week, but who knows? I'm busy. Stuff's going on. But next time, right? I will also link the bottom of the last link in the video. Go check out my other channel with all of my buddies, those Thomas guys. I think we're gonna start live streaming our Friday nights rather than just clipping out and uploading to YouTube. We might just start streaming over there on YouTube on that channel. As soon as I know we get a couple of things together. But so anyway, go check out those Thomas guys. Put the link in the description also of this video, along with, everything else is already in there. All right. This has been fun. You guys have a good afternoon, good rest of the week. Talk to y'all next time.